Good evening, Danvers. Welcome to the Topics of the Town News, April 6th, 2023. Today we have two special guests, and one of them has been on the show before, Tony Betancourt. But today we have a special guest, John Toomey,
Godfather of Danvers.
godfather of Danvers Cable Television. And he's had previous shows, and he's been on this show in the past. And I hope to have you come back and do the show with us on a regular basis if you can.
We'll try it and see what
Well,
happens.
we're not going to beat you up.
You're going to
So-
beat us up.
Welcome to our local broadcast. Headlines are dedicated to the residents of Danvers. Our subjects are town warrants and our small town government. We think that we are a city and we need a charter review. Town ballots and elections, CPA ballot question, which you'll see behind us. Beverly Airport neighborhood disaster, how to fix it, collect taxes owed, establish airport authority, escape from the grasp of Beverly control. The last one I chose as a subject that's been very close to my heart, religion and what we believe in after COVID restrictions and during COVID restrictions. The agenda and opinions are solely by the topics of the town, host, guests, and commentators. So, segment one today is going to be in regards to the town warrant and our small town government, what we think that we are a city instead of a small town anymore, and we need a charter review. So, gentlemen, John, if you want to just mention a word here, I'll just explain what has happened, is that we, as the citizens of Danvers, proposed a citizen petition requesting a thorough review and update of the town charter and the Town Manager Act.
Yep.
And the results of the select board review and their comments. I went on Tuesday to present the articles that have been submitted in regard. I had probably 25 signatures for each article, and there was a citizen's petition. And I presented it, but all it does is basically the true update and revisions that are required. And the town moderator would appoint a committee to assess the required updates and report to the 2024 town meeting, basically a year from now. And that's what has happened in the past, where in 1994 or 95 was the last time there was a review committee. And that was 26 years ago.
So that was a long time ago.
So the thing is, what do you think, John?
Well, I think the biggest problem in the town is lack of citizens' interest.
That I agree with.
I mean, if you look at, I think the last election, 30% of the voters actually voted. But that's been going on all the time. So the end result is you have a government that represents 30% of the people.
And that was high. 30% is high.
Yes.
I think it's like 20 or less than 20 even, because it was a state election as well.
And that's been going on for some time.
Right.
So either people are doing so well they don't care, they don't know what's going on. And personally, I think it's a combination of both. But the end result is overall, I think town government is pretty good.
Right.
But we're spending too bloody much money. And as our signs say, it's getting worse, not better.
And
that-
the sign that you're talking about is a extension of tax collections, because this is basically a 2.5 override. It's the CPA, and what has been tried over the last 5 years has been tried the third time this year
Well,
to pass it.
the
And
thing
if
that-
they don't have a good turnout too, it might pass this time. That's the problem. We got
well,
people to
what
show up.
bugs me about it is this is the voters giving a group permission and the authority to spend money.
Right.
And they give them the money and they can spend it. They don't have to tell you what they're going to spend it on. They don't tell you how much they got. They don't tell you what's going on. But it's your money. And this is basically, we are taxed enough, vote no.
No question in my mind.
That's true with everything in taxes in town.
They got to live
Thank
within
you.
their means. They have to live within their means. At home, we have to live within our means. If we don't have the money, we don't spend it.
Well, see, the thing on this, and we're stuck on CPA, but CPA is basically a means of averting a 2.5 override, because the state, in their wisdom, the state legislature, in their wisdom and interpretations, has given a option to these citizens' petitions, because basically that's what it is. They gathered 1,090 some signatures to put this on the ballot. It is going to be on this ballot, and the expectations of this election, or this voting on May 2nd, is approximately 1,500 votes. So the tragic end of this thing is that very few people will even know about what this is all about, and they're going to get taxed. The business people don't know about it. They're going to be taxed, because this will be a surcharge that has been authorized by the voters.
And the sad part too, if this passes, who knows what they're going to try next?
Well,
That's another problem.
well, see, the problem is that the town is running out of other people's money.
Yes.
And the thing is that we need to realize that this is not an open checkbook that can
Right.
be used, because every time there was an article on the town meeting in regard to historic preservation, to low-income housing, to open space, it's always been debated, and whether it was worthwhile for the entire town, it was either approved or disapproved by town meeting, who are our legislative body
Exactly.
in town hall or in the town. The CPA costs, or the revenues that will be collected over and above a real estate tax, is a 1% surcharge that can be increased or decreased by the select board. And the thing is that we cannot allow that to happen,
And it's all
because
pet projects too. We don't even know what projects they're going to be.
and this will be manipulated and spent by an unelected. This is taxation without representation.
Uncontrolled, and they don't have to report what they're doing. They do it on their own. They do whatever they want.
That's been happening in other towns, absolutely. So this is a greed of certain members of our community that want to extract more tax revenue from our pockets and spend it on their special interests.
The sad part of this town is a very good town. I always keep saying it, okay? People are generous around here, okay? If there's something worthwhile that needs to be done and they need the money for it, I'm pretty sure if they put something together and get some people out there, they'll get the money. The business will help.
That's right.
The people will help. But it's got to be something, worthwhile. I mean, you just can't, they're not going to just give it out for anything.
That's right. And the issues that have been brought up over the last 25, 30 years, everyone that needed to get this funding from town meeting got the funding.
Yes.
So, all right. So this is one piece of the ballot that's going to be cast on May 2nd. And it's a ballot question. It's question number 1. That's why we have initiated getting these signs to the voters so they can assess for themselves.
We have to educate the voters, basically.
That's right. And there will be additional brochures that will be made available, and we hope to be
You can't tell them what to do, but you have to educate them.
But you have to
absolute-
educate them. That's correct. That's the big question, is get them to know what's going on.
All right. So now that we beat this one to death, let's move on to segment number 2, town government, town ballots and election, CPA ballot question, which will continue. But in my estimation and what's been going on in town hall, elections, there are no contested offices,
No.
basically. Except for my precinct, 7, which is getting more candidates than there are seats.
I know.
Many of the precincts are filled by acclamation, basically, when they put their name down. So I feel very confident that people really need to know what's going on, and that's one of the races. But what I like to do is, Jack, is show our Tasmanian devil. Well, we missed the Tasmanian devil, but I missed
There we
I mean,
are.
it's not, is
I
it?
missed the good old days. Remember when you could actually have an opinion without offending somebody. And that is such a true statement
Oh,
of
very
what's
true.
going on in our town.
Very true.
And one of the things that we need to start looking at is our community. What has happened to Danvers? Our community has always been responsive to the needs of all our residents. But during this time of our current controlling rules and guidance, our leaders overreacted. And I'm talking about the last 3 years. We are being trained to become isolated and fearful of large group gatherings and public meetings. We must ask why. And this brought this to my attention, attending the select board, the selectmen's meeting. There's three members that sat through the whole meeting, and there was nobody available to ask questions. They can do whatever they want because
That's exactly what the town government is at the moment.
And that's what we need to start resisting. And that's why the citizens petition has been placed on the ballot to review and update the current government guidelines, because basically that's what the town charter is.
On top of it, there's no one goes to the meetings also. I mean, that's another problem, you know? Have to get people more interested, but I don't know. I mean,
That was the whole point. Actions of our town leaders have impacted the morale of the taxpayers and now the entire community. Recent actions by our leaders, the school board and the select board, are being stressed. They appear to be eating their own members because they are resistant to the status quo. They cannot agree to disagree. Not everyone agrees with the establishment. Some members of the club have overextended their stay, and they will not give way to the new establishment. Recall petition is a must if that is implemented. This is leading us into the recall petition that was another citizens petition. And the petition is very high level. I mean, you need
Yeah, it's tough. It's not an easy thing to do.
350
Signatures to start it.
signatures. And then you need another 4,000
Well, they said, yeah,
signatures
within
to
4
get it
weeks.
on the ballot. John, what do you think? I mean, you've been around this town forever.
Well, entirely different town. I was born and raised here, and it was as much a farming town as anything else back then. But today, as I said before, the biggest problem is people aren't involved. And this is what the program is about, is giving them information and trying to get them involved, get on the road, do something. And what is this?
This is the recall petition.
And
Now-
but explain what it's doing.
What it's doing is if there is a infraction by the elected officials of this town, whether they are, charged with a crime or they, get into very serious incident.
All right, but what's the difference between doing it that way and doing it the way we have at the present time? Somebody's there, they're elected, and you don't like them, or they're doing something wrong, and the next time they run for election, you don't vote for them.
Well, that's the way it is right now.
That's
That's exactly what I'm saying.
the voter recall, basically, because if they won't vote. But if somebody incurs a
Infraction.
infraction or a crime
Like they said, if we have
in
someone,
the first year,
if we had someone on the school committee, basically, and he did something wrong, okay, and he didn't want to resign, say like child molester or something like that, or something, he has a record somehow, all of a sudden, they found out he had it, and he didn't want to resign. This is what they're talking about. They'd use that to go after him, to remove him from office.
right. That's all it is. It's not to.
But from what I understand, we hope that it doesn't change to just punish people or do something instead of
Well-
doing something. They said it couldn't be that way, but that's the sad part about it. Sometimes it could turn out that way.
That's
That's
the
the sad
part
part.
that's bad about it.
Right, that's the part that's bad.
It's given more control to the government that's in there.
Yes, that's
And
what
it-
I don't
and
like
if-
in a way. If it's done the right way, it's perfect.
If there's someone who comes in there that doesn't agree with the government that's there, then they would use that to get
Right.
rid of them.
We don't want it because if you have 5 people, basically, and 2 are different, we don't want to use that to get the person to change his vote or something. We don't want that.
Well, I can see the need for the weapon to do something, but at the same time, this one seems to be too strong. There's too many things you can do with it.
Well, that's why
Well,
it's gonna be fun too.
the requirement of proceeding starts at 2 stages, and that was very well explained by Mr. Trainer, I believe.
Yes, it was. Recent
And
5 town meeting member.
he has been working on this thing since last year because that was introduced last year. And boy, did the selectmen and the school board didn't like anything like that because they were, under the gun.
And they pulled
But-
it. They didn't even put it on the floor for a vote.
No, they
They pulled
withdrew it.
They
Yeah.
withdrew it. Even right now, the selectmen didn't give us a favorable review, if I'm not mistaken. They said
Well,
it
the
unfavorable.
selectmen don't want anybody to interfere in the actions of what's going on in town hall. And the thing is, somebody needs to shake up that town hall.
But that's the voter. And unless they come out and vote and they participate, it's not going to happen.
I
There's
know.
not going to
And
be
it
any
seems
change.
like right now we're in a lazy mode. I mean, whatever goes, and we all go along with it. That's the problem.
Everybody claims to be too busy to get involved.
But you can understand how it is. Look at how much we're paying property taxes. I mean, if you got a young couple here, I mean, 2 have to work, so they don't have. And if they got kids, they got to play care for the kids. Do this, and if you got sports, you got to pay for sports. It's not easy to live today. They actually, honestly, that's why people probably don't get involved. I mean, I think a lot of people that get involved are people that are retired. They have a little extra time and they want to help out and do something. But
No, they don't want to get involved because they get chastised for raising their hand and asking questions. And that's where people are afraid to raise their issues because they get criticized
Well,
by the
yeah.
boards that they go to. The Board of Selectmen actions restricting questions by members and then punishing individual selectmen is abhorrent. Freedom of speech is part of open government.
But if you always watch the selectmen meeting for as long as I've been watching them, there was always either 3, 2, or whatever. And you know what I'm saying? There was always a little bit of controversy. You know what I mean? Then they don't always go the same way.
I remember being on the board 4-1 votes all the time because I expressed the views that I believed I was elected to express. Now, what they have right now is they have their own club and they don't want anybody to interfere with them because they've been there for 17 years and 15 years and the new ones don't have any idea why they're there.
I
So-
agree with that to a certain extent. Yes, I do.
We need to have freedom of speech as part of open government. Need to discuss the restrictive questioning of board candidates by our elite board selectman chairman. Why restrict questioning? Now, I'll give you an example of last Tuesday's meeting. I was granted all the favors in presenting our
Listen,
citizens petitions.
I'm going to give Mr. Bennett a lot of credit. Mr. Bennett has been a lot more open, okay? I know for a fact, I don't even want to get into names or whatever, but I know for a fact, last time there was another chairman, okay? He wouldn't let us speak. Even a lot of times the airport came up and they wouldn't even let us talk, okay? It was ridiculous, okay? It's like they fudged it, okay? And it's not the way it should be. It should be anybody that wants to talk and have conversations should be able to get up there. They should be able to talk or whatever. Even when Mr. Bennett asked us, you can only ask questions. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
It should be any kind of conversation, as long as it's got to go with the thing that we're talking about. I mean, it should, you know what I mean? It should be, the thing is, I guess if you start talking, you could be there all night talking. That's the sad part, okay?
But what are they there for?
That's it. But
Except to listen to the residents.
But another problem, they should be getting more money, okay?
Oh my God! This
they
is what I
should.
heard last
I
last
know, but
Tuesday.
you know why I say that? I say that because this way here, maybe you might have more interest. More people would probably join in.
These people that are on the board are either fully employed and or retired.
But they, they do a lot of work. I mean,
Well, that's
the thing.
what they volunteered for when they
So
ran
they should be
for
compensated
election.
for it. They
But-
should be compensated for it.
Tony, you're getting into the trap.
It all comes back to, unless the average citizen out there
Right.
gets participation and gets into it and votes, there won't be any change. It's the people who are there are going to, as you say, they've been there for years and years and years.
Right. And the Board of Selectmen, there's only 5 of them. They have every right to ask any questions of the applicants for positions, or because what they're doing is they're vetting those people that are being appointed.
They check it on the town, check and balances.
That's
they have
right.
to really look at the people, see what's going in there.
And what's been happening is that the dictator in town hall has been appointing a lot of these positions, and the selectmen really don't have much to say about it. So, sorry to use the term dictator, but
No,
that's
I
been a
understand.
term I've used for years.
But you know what it is too? You want to build your team, people that you can trust.
Right.
If you can trust them and you do the right thing, that's what you want. Honestly.
Well, then they better start searching for members of the committee instead of asking for volunteers. They need to get people on these boards that are interested, but they're also responsive to what that function is. The sleeping giant has been poked enough to produce a response to the restrictive rules being initiated in our town. The actions by our select board and appointed leaders cannot go unanswered. The taxpayers and all residents need to resist. This is my own statement and I'll swear by it. The taxpayers must stop feeding the dragon. If the king is unwilling, residents must stop the dysfunction. And that's where the voters come into play.
Yes.
The select board chairman is petitioning for a CPA override while the Beverly Airport and estate taxes state taxes are forgiven for years.
Let's get on to
Potentially
the
$1 million is left on the table.
Let's get on to the airport.
Okay, we'll get to the airport. CPA question, we've already done that. Jack, you can put on the last clip. That's the CPA closure. We need to open up the town charter and the Town Manager Act and can set up a review committee at town meeting. Now, during my exercise of finding out where our budget is and all that, I have gone through the budget itself, and I believe, and you know I'm a numbers guy, that the budget is inflated to a tune of at least 10%, which results in larger tax, but it does not get wasted, which is fine. However, that permits the town to collect up to the 2.5%
Right. It seems
from the tax revenue.
It seems like they have about 8,000, 10,000 every year, more or less.
8 million
8
to
million.
10 million.
Okay.
This year they have 22 million. Basically, they got 8.7 from
Federal government?
the federal government, and then they saved 8.7 million in our budget, and we have revenue coming in for the schools as well.
I know, but in our streets are terrible. That's what I'm trying to get. I don't understand this.
Well, we're going to have a discussion tonight because DPW is on for review of town meeting
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, they have a
actions.
meeting tonight, that's right, too.
Okay. I just ran through a federal, state, and local entities are ready to increase our tax collected from our lowly taxpayers. Recently, Governor Maura Healey released her first annual budget, proposed totaling $55.5 billion. I remember the state budget used to be $8 billion, and that was high. Now it's up to $55.5 billion. That's a whopping 15% increase from the previous governor's last budget proposal. The narrowly passed ballot question that raised the state income tax by 80% on some small businesses, retirees, home sales, and the high-income earners is included in Governor Healey's budget. She expects to collect $1 billion from that question one that was authorized.
The Lord help us.
And I heard
That's
they
right.
want to go 1% more on the sales tax. Did I hear that?
Oh yeah, they will. They will. The new governor is expecting this surcharge tax will collect $1 billion in additional tax revenues from the increased state tax receipts. They are coming from all sides to pick our pockets.
That's the problem.
We must resist. CPA is a perfect example of greed and inefficiency,
We're letting them do it.
just
That's
to
another
get
problem.
more taxpayer money and spend it freely. Taxpayers must attend meetings, budget hearings, and school committee meetings to get to be heard. However, what is being encouraged by our town government and our Board of Selectmen and the school committee, websites are set up to isolate the personal touch and let the elected officials off the hook. The Danvers new website is inadequate for meetings, schedules, and access to data. This is a primary reason for the new updated. Seems that the town wants to be able to collect our fees and taxes electronically, easier on the accounting department. But we have a big issue. Albert Einstein expressed his views back about 100 years ago. I fear the day that technology will surpass our human interaction. The world will have a generation of idiots. And we're coming to that because they want us to be isolated and not to face-to-face meetings anymore.
Like you're saying about the tax, the new website. My wife went on to pay the taxes. Like
Right.
the tax bills came in. She was going to pay them. She went on. She's used to doing it, But she said it was a different screen. It came into a different place. She had to fill all kinds of stuff out. She said, forget about it. She was afraid to do it. She didn't know. So whatever. Now she brought out the checks. I got to take them down and pay them.
I mail mine, put a stamp on it so that it gets there.
I'm going to take mine down next week.
All right, so Albert had his say. John, what do you say?
Ah,
What do you think about the website? Do you get on the website at all?
no.
This is a new invention
no.
again.
It's completely, there's a lot of us that aren't involved, and this is the biggest problem, is we aren't
Right.
involved. We don't know what's going on, so we have to get involved.
And the way to get involved is to attend these meetings.
Yes,
But a lot of us do not have the time, and that's what the complaint is all the time. We don't know that these meetings are happening, for one thing, because we don't go on the website. And another thing is that a lot of the residents, taxpayers, don't have the time to even go on the website.
well, they should, a lot of these meetings are on TV, and that's the good start, is to go on TV and see the
But
meeting. But then that will give you enough information that you can realize you've got to go to the meeting itself.
But Mr. Toomey, they used to put on, DK used to actually put on what shows were on before, what time they're going to be on. They don't do that anymore.
Like a menu.
And they had a menu board. They don't have the menu board anymore. So you got to kind of just look through the stations, Oh, and then another thing too is the select board. The select board's been putting on Facebook. All the meetings they put it, but it's usually they put it on the day before. So you're going to catch it.
Well, this
But
is why
not everybody goes on Facebook.
That's the point. That's the problem. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Otherwise, you wouldn't know.
you gotta get people involved so that you can force them.
I think that's what
to
it is.
do
I don't think they
something.
want people involved. That's why they probably do it this way.
That's exactly.
That's the problem.
We are involved.
We look for
Personally.
stuff, but other people wouldn't know.
However, a lot of the residents and taxpayers are, like I've been saying for years, are afraid to stick their neck out because they don't want to be criticized by our elected officials. That needs to improve because the elected officials are there because of us. They're here to work for us,
You're
not
right.
for themselves.
But you got to remember one thing: you got to watch and play the game. Otherwise, you'll be in trouble. That's the problem.
All right, let's move on to the segment 3. And I put this on as an introduction because this thing is going to be more extensive as we go along. Religion and what we believe in after COVID restrictions. What has happened to Danvers? Our community has always been responsive to the needs of all our residents. But during the time of our current controlling rules and regulations, that our leaders overreacted. We are being trained to become isolated and fearful of large group gatherings and public meetings. We must ask why. This is an extension of the previous discussion. Our actions of our town leaders have impacted the morale of the taxpayers and now the entire community. Our religious establishments are not insulated from the surrounding influences, specifically our personal religious beliefs. Now, I dug up this article that is, the title of it is The Subordination of Church to State. And what we need to take a look at is that during the COVID epidemic, our churches were closed, our synagogues were closed, and they were directed to close by policies of our government. I thought we were free to choose our religion and practice our religion. And the thing is, government impacted us. The rejecting the Enlightenment, the philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau argued for the imposition of civil religion, a statist, secular dogma citizens are compelled to believe above all else, where one religious beliefs did not impact the civil religion, Rousseau would deign to allow these subordinated beliefs as a result of persons' freedom and conscience is not respected, and those who dissent from the civil religion are subject to re-education and other punishments, including death, forced to be free, punished, and or killed.
All
This
right,
is-
but what are you objecting to that the government did?
The government in itself has instructed our religious facilities to close their doors.
Did it work?
To most extent, yes.
And
Well,
I think it took a lot of people from not going back to church. I think it took them out of the church.
That's right.
That's the problem. Right now, in the churches, right now, hardly anybody goes. It's
But
sad.
that's the church's problem.
But
Well,
I have,
No,
the government put their foot in, and because of COVID, closed the churches down and didn't want us to go to church, right? If I'm not
Jack,
mistaken.
can you show the
And what happened
next
is,
clip?
I think it made a big. I mean, I'm only talking for myself.
There
from
you
what
go.
I see.
Church is closed.
But if you go to church and you infect other people,
Right.
you have a disaster. You're going to lose the people.
But now
No.
we're learning that the COVID wasn't really that bad, and they overdid
But,
run it.
but
But
it
we don't know if
wasn't.
that's true.
It
I mean,
wasn't. It wasn't that bad because they restricted the people from meeting and spreading the disease. Now you got one choice or the other. Fine, you have religion, you go to mass, you go to church, and you spread the disease, and you die. You kill the community.
That's true. But we have another problem too. They told us to wear masks. Now they're telling us masks don't work, so it's kind of confusing.
Well,
they told us that if you had an N35 or N95, whatever it was,
95.
those are supposed to work. The regular cloth masks or other masks, they say don't work.
they don't really know. That's the thing.
Well, that's the reason being. See, it's another thing. They kind of just feed things out there, and this is all messed up. Someone should explain it to us better. That's their job. But
Their job is to protect the people, and they do what they have to do. What they consider is protecting the people, and it's a very simple choice: either this or that. You close the churches, you close the businesses, you close meetings.
and
and
COVID's
you-
still going on. That's
And
another
there
problem,
were
too.
No, it's really not going on. It worked.
It did work, but I mean, people are still getting COVID.
Some
Very
of it,
little,
yes.
very little. But I mean,
Right,
it's
but-
not as bad
but-
now, I think, too. But
Well,
It's a virus. That's all COVID is. And we did overreact to the dictates that have been
But the
made by our
countries-
government.
the countries that didn't do this had disasters.
no,
Which one?
Switzerland, I think wasn't Switzerland the one that didn't close down and they did real good?
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken.
Norway and Sweden did the
Right.
same thing.
So I mean, I'm not trying to bash anything,
But
whatever. You know,
see, the thing is, what we have to go back to is how did the church contribute to the dissolution or elimination of church attendance?
hold it. if you remember, people were having mass outside in cars, and they closed them down from that. Do you remember that?
Yes, I attended one. Like
Okay,
that.
do you see what I'm saying? So let's see, they went a little bit beyond, I think, if you ask me.
You got to face reality. Is it this, the COVID restriction, that created the splitting up of the churches, or was it because the church has not convinced the people?
Well, it's a combination of
religion.
both.
It is.
Combination of
Well,
both.
if it's a combination of both, you have to give the church credit for what they did and what they didn't do.
Well-
And they weren't. It's not only my religion, but it's everybody's religion,
Well,
more or less.
The synagogues did the same thing.
If I'm not mistaken, even in Davis right now, we got St. Mary's and St. Richard's. I think that they're having trouble. I think they're trying to combine the two in a way. They're using one priest for both.
Because of the population
Well, we've-
depletion.
We've already closed one Catholic church, and the parishioners that go to Mass today, they're minor numbers compared to what they were. But that's also true for a lot of the other religions.
No, it is. It's true.
But it was not the government restriction, it's the churches. The churches are not convincing people that religion is truth.
And this is what this philosopher is basically getting across, is that there's a movement afoot, and this is not the last 3 years, this has been going on for 50 years. Because to religious believers and all who believe in human rights, dignity, and democracy, Communist China is a cautionary tale of what could happen in a free world, but for the left, Communist China is a roadmap. And that's what's being expressed and followed in the Chinese government, where the government is imposing their own restrictions on how you believe in your religion.
It's kind of happening here a little bit right now.
That's right.
Sad to say.
This is especially concerning here in the United States, where the God-given right of the free exercise of religion is explicitly, and the freedom of conscience implicitly recognized, respected, and protected by the U.S. Constitution. Yes, the government is also prohibited from establishing a religion, yet refraining from naming a special religion as the official state religion is not the same as permitting, let alone mandating, the rejection of religious beliefs and practice in public life. It is the distinction and difference between atheism and ecumenism, and it is lost upon the left. Or is it? This distorted view of the Establishment Clause has furthered not only the separation of church and state, but the subordination of church to state. And this has been my concern and my opinion, and I've been reading a lot about this, and I've been discussing this with some, clerical people that I have been associated with. And this is nothing new, but it's moving faster than you would expect.
Yes, and it's to do. We have two parties, and one party right now has a lot of power, and it's trying to shut down the other one. That's a problem.
Well, the thing is
the
that
other one-
the church is not resisting any of these changes. They're complicit in what the government wants. So I'm afraid, and as of yet, we haven't crossed the Rubicon into a Leviathan world of atheism, totalitarianism, and barbarism. But we are on the bridge, being propelled forward by a secular left that, with torches in hand, is determined to subordinate religion and the freedom of conscience to the ideology dictates of their statist civil religion and to eradicate the religious foundation of Western civilization with a virulence that would please Diocletian.
Well,
This was the Latin.
this is just like the elections we were talking about.
Yes.
And this is another case of where the average religious person should get involved, but they don't. They just
Well-
walk to church and they walk home, and they don't make
Next
any.
door.
Yeah.
Okay, so my questions were raised on this article is how has religion or religious beliefs changed as a result of COVID? Personal experiences only. Government dictated response to churches who did not resist. What effect has been felt by families? What was the response of the church of another or other entities?
Did the churches get money from the COVID thing?
I don't know. They won't say.
I'm curious. Now you got me thinking because the schools did. Everybody did. The school.
But the schools, there's supposed to be a separation of church and state.
Well, I understand that too. That's true. Okay, so I'm wondering.
And
But
when-
if they made them close,
well, no, they suggested to the religious community to close their church. They will not. The government will not tell you that you have to close it. I think there's a
it
recommendation.
was kind of strong. Like I said, there was people remember doing in cars. They were doing masses in cars, if you remember that. And
That was by choice of the clergy of that
and
particular
they were doing
church.
the same thing because they were doing it outside instead of doing it in the church, and
Yeah,
they
I
still
know.
got in trouble for that, and they tried to close them down and stuff. So
All right. So
But
how?
the thing you're completely ignoring is the churches are losing their people. The
yes,
Now they
people,
lost more.
the people who are, let's say, still going, still religious, basically you could say that they're anywhere from, say, 50 years old up. 50 years down,
Right.
they're no longer
That's true.
religious.
no, you're right though.
And this is the biggest problem that all the faiths are facing.
It starts at home. That's the reason being. I
Well-
think, and
well-
it's got lost along the way.
The religion is not going to this group of people.
Right.
The churches are not educating them. They have not discovered how to get to them.
I think you're right.
And unfortunately, it's getting worse, not better. And
Yeah.
the COVID was just simply unfortunate situation.
There was a spark plug that
that-
generated
it-
more
yeah,
resistance.
It got worse because of it.
All right. So now we'll move into Beverly Airport.
Okay.
So, how did our Beverly Airport governance and reaction of resident taxpayers? Is Beverly a neighborhood disaster? And how do we fix it? So, I have two clips, and I think we have to get at least those clips in,
Okay.
because the rest of it is really repetitions of what we said before. But let's look at the clip.
It's Jason.
Go ahead, Jack.
1 minute, he said. I mean, that's a mess over
Cat
there.
Aviation. I basically have two items. One is a question, and that is you're talking about extending runway length. And you come up with 5,600 feet. What is with that number? Why can't it be 53, 54, 55? What is the 56 representing? It's talking about 300 feet on each end. And on the Wenham end, you're gonna have a serious problem. If you can go to just 5,300 feet, the cost is gonna be much lower legally because of Wenham. Or you could probably extend another 100 feet there. so you'd have 5,400 feet. But to move this subject along, why wouldn't it be, I mean, what does the 5,600 foot represent? I know it over 5,000 feet, like we go 5,001 because of certain aircrafts, but what would, if we only did 53 instead of 56, your cost would be a lot lower.
Okay.
And why, I mean, why not examine that?
Okay.
My other thing is Building 45. I have been involved in that for years and years and years. For 7 years, I've gotten nothing for it. When it was producing income, it was producing $700 a month. That's for the whole building and the restaurant. Now, why wouldn't you just put in, and this has been done in the past, since it's such a junk building, having somebody who's interested to come in and just say, okay, for 5 years, we don't pay anything for rent. We will completely rehab that building, start it up as a restaurant and everything. But you'd have to negotiate 5 years from now what you would be charging them under certain circumstances. But to get the ball started, there are some people that would come in and pay the big amount and get it set up the way they wanted to. And, all right, so for 5.
All right, so that, oh, I like the sound. Okay. Just as an explanation, this was a meeting that was held last month at the Airport Commission, and you have that on the Channel 36 on Verizon and Channel 99 on Comcast.
Yes.
However, what I like to explain is one of the questions that was raised by Ace Chase is, why did we choose 5,600 feet? Because a consultant advised the airport manager at that time, who was trying to expand the airport to accept larger and heavier planes.
Yes.
That's the main reason. The next clip I have is probably very quickly, if we can just go through it. Jack?
Jack, can you give us number 2?
Ace Chase, Cat Aviation. I basically have two.
I haven't been here for a couple of months.
Just keep in mind, sir, we're trying to keep it, we gave a few extra minutes, but I'm gonna try to hold you to 4 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
One thing I want to do is congratulate you on your plan for the business plan and the subcommittees. Your subcommittees right now are non-functional. All you do your business is at this meeting. So the noise committee has been working on the outside because you only have 2 commissions. The other committees don't exist. So it's a good thing. So I want to make sure that that's recognized. The one question I had when we were talking about the master plan, and this comes in together with the fuel charges and the taxes that are being collected someplace, because that fuel does not come without federal, state, and excise tax, I believe, that's included in there. That's where Mr. Kossawan was saying that his bill had a lot of different identified costs. We, at one time, and I'm going back to 95, 97, 98, there was a discussion because the fuel depot here at the airport is located in Danvers, on Danvers property. I cut this little short because I don't want to see myself making a speech, but that speech was basically the Beverly Airport Commissioners updated a good neighbor policy, but have not implemented or given the policy to the public for any
No.
review,
They're still working on it.
afraid of the reaction. So the next clip is Beverly Airport, insignia here. But what we'll do is there's a lot of activity that's happening, and we're going to a meeting.
I believe
next-
Monday, it should be Monday at 6, what is it? 6 o'clock, I think it's 6 o'clock. Yeah, 6 o'clock.
At the Beverly East Side,
Yeah,
which is the Beverly side.
Second Monday of the month should be this Monday.
That's right. So what the thing about Beverly is that if you just throw the airplane runway, there you go. Their aim is to expand the airport to the level where they can accept heavier jets.
And there's about 3
Do
to
they-
4 to 5 leave there already every day.
Do they have any choice?
Yes, they do. This
What?
is a decision that's made by the airport manager.
Why did they make the decision?
Because that's where they make their money. They're going to make more money. They don't make no money on the small planes.
Well, that unfortunately, that's the point.
And
It's a
that,
business, and they have to make money to survive.
but
well,
here's the
And-
problem, though.
And what the problem is, if they're going to survive, they're going to have to bring in larger and noisier aircraft.
they're already doing that on the 55,001.
And
foot
here's the
runway.
problem.
But
If
the
they,
choice is, if they don't exist. They go out of
No,
business.
their choice is that Danvers has put in a citizen's petition to develop a method to return to collecting the real estate taxes.
That has not to do anything with the Beverly Airport surviving.
No, but it's probably going to cost them more, and that's where it's going to.
well, stop and think. If they got all these jets coming in, and there's so many houses around there, if everybody goes for a tax abatement, I don't care if they get $1 million. It'd be enough. That's the problem.
The problem is, if the Beverly Airport wants to survive, it's gonna have to get noisier.
Right, but they can't. We can't let this happen. That's the problem.
So you're gonna stop the airport. You're gonna shut it
No,
down.
No,
You're
we don't want to
going
shut them down.
to curtail the operations
If
to
you
a level
curtail it,
of
they're
a
not
regional.
going to make enough money to survive. They're a business.
Their business is not running too well. That's their problem. Ask me.
All right,
Whenever you have free money, okay? It
Guys.
seems-
guys, we're into our last stretch, but I want to continue this Beverly Airport after the meeting that we have next week, and just as a matter of closing up this
Understood.
meeting of the minds
Yes.
here.
No, I understand.
And the godfather of
Well, you know, he's
cable
been around for a long
television.
time. He's been around for a long time.
Do you have a closing statement?
And he's also worked at the airport, you know.
I know.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I know that. I
Well,
remember.
as a kid, that was antique.
Yeah, and it was good back then.
Well, yeah, I got some free flying lessons
See?
for working there, and but it really didn't work out. Unfortunately, I went to get my license, and
You
this is
can't-
what happened.
Uh-huh.
I couldn't see well enough to qualify, so
Uh-huh.
bingo, that took care of it. But
All right, Tony, closing comments.
What do you want to talk about? You want to talk about the airport, or you want to talk about just anything at all?
Well, anything at all.
I don't know. We live in a wonderful town, but the way things are going, I'm telling you, I don't know. It just taxes are too high, as far as I'm concerned, and they keep taxing us. I mean, if you retire here, it's ridiculous. You know what I mean? It really is. I don't have to tell you.
well,
Jack, the last clip.
What do you think, Mr. Toomey? Can you survive here, living here on retirement?
fortunately, yes.
But you just get by, right?
I'm living off my wife's pension. She
Okay.
was a teacher.
Okay. Well, no.
The town, the town paid for it, not Danvers, but the town
Thank
that she
you.
worked in.
Thank you both for
Oh, no, thank you for having
appearing
us.
on the show, and we will continue our endeavor to fight the CPA tax that they don't want to identify as a tax. So good night, Danvers. Good night, Mr. Toomey. Mr. Toomey, did you hear that? And Tony Betancourt.
And thank you for all you do, Mark. You
Thank
really
you.
do a lot. I appreciate it.